He struggled to find work after university. No professor wanted to hire him as a research assistant. He eventually took a job reviewing patent applications just to pay the bills. And then, in 1905, working entirely in his spare time with no laboratory and no research team, he published 4 papers that would permanently change physics. This is Albert Einstein, and the strange, deliberate way he actually thought. Einstein wasn't the effortless prodigy that pop culture often imagines. He was, in some ways, an outsider in his own field. His unconventional approach to problems and his independent streak didn't endear him to professors who expected conformity. After graduating, he spent months unemployed before landing a position at the Swiss Patent Office, evaluating other people's inventions for a living. It was during this unglamorous stretch, but not in some elite research institution, and that he produced what's now called his miracle year: special relativity, the photoelectric effect, and the equation that would eventually become the most famous in the world. E equals mc squared. All of it came from a man working essentially alone, thinking in a way almost nobody around him was thinking. Here's something that surprises most people. Einstein didn't primarily think in words or mathematical symbols. He described his own thought process as working through signs and images that he could combine and reproduce in his mind. A kind of visual, associative play that came before any translation into formal language or equations. His most famous example of this is a thought experiment from his teenage years, imagining what it would look like to ride alongside a beam of light. That single, almost childlike image, chasing a beam of light, eventually grew into the foundation of special relativity. He wasn't starting with the math and working toward an image. He was starting with the image and using math afterward, as a tool to formalize what he'd already grasped intuitively. This matters because it reframes what genius-level thinking often actually looks like. It's not necessarily faster calculation. It's often a different relationship with a problem, approaching it through imagination and intuition first, logic second. Einstein was known for carving out real, uninterrupted time to simply think, going on long walks, playing the violin, sailing, or retreating to quiet cabins with no clear agenda. He once said he had never lost his sense of the need for solitude. This wasn't idle time. It was where the actual connective work happened. The space where isolated ideas from his more structured working hours could quietly rearrange themselves into something new. His daily routine had a consistent structure of work blocks, rest, and recovery, built around the understanding that sustained creative output requires real breaks, not constant grinding. Modern neuroscience has since caught up to what Einstein seemed to intuit: the brain's default mode network, the system responsible for a lot of unconscious creative problem-solving, activates specifically during rest, not focused effort. Einstein wasn't taking breaks despite his work. In a real sense, the breaks were part of the work. Einstein pursued theories that failed constantly throughout his career. Dead ends, miscalculations, ideas that simply didn't hold up. He treated this not as evidence he was on the wrong track as a person, but as an unavoidable cost of doing anything genuinely new. He's often summarized as believing the only real way to avoid ever making a mistake is to never attempt anything original in the first place. This is a meaningfully different relationship with failure than most people default to. For Einstein, a failed hypothesis wasn't a referendum on his intelligence. It was simply data, one closed door out of many, on the way toward whichever door was actually open. So how do you use any of this without a physics degree? First, when you're stuck on a hard problem, try approaching it visually or intuitively. Before reaching for the correct formal method, sketch it, picture it happening, explain it to yourself the way you'd explain it to a curious kid. The formal structure can come later, once you actually understand what you're looking at. Second, protect real unstructured time deliberately, the way Einstein protected his walks and his violin. If every hour of your day is scheduled and reactive, you're removing the exact conditions your brain needs to make unexpected connections. This isn't laziness. It's an input your best thinking depends on. Third, reframe a wrong attempt as information, not identity. The specific question isn't, was I right or wrong? It's, what does this failed attempt rule out? And what does it point me toward? Next, that shift alone makes people more willing to attempt the kind of original thinking that produces real breakthroughs. Einstein wasn't handed his ideas by some mysterious, unrepeatable genius gene. He built a specific relationship with problems. Visual, patient, unafraid of being wrongs, and protected the mental space that relationship needed to function. That part, unlike the physics, is something anyone can actually practice.